Okay, so your job is to interpret some of Shakespeare's language. So I wanted to give you some practice here with one of Shakespeare's sonnets. It's called Shall I Compare These to a Summer's Day? So I'm going to go through this and show you what I do in order to kind of write a modern translation. So this over here would be my Shakespeare's, and this over here would be my modern translation. There's a lot of work that goes into it before I start. So let's start. So first I just do my initial reading. This is my title, I know, because it's bold. And it says, Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. Sometime too hot the eye of heaven shines, and often is his gold complexion dimmed, and every fair from fair sometimes declines, by chance or nature's changing course untrimmed. But thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest, nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal line to time thou growest. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. Okay, so once I've done my initial reading, I read it, and then I kind of panic because I'm like, I have no idea what he's saying. So then you kind of go through line by line and figure out what is going on. What are they saying about this kind of summer's day, right? That's in my title here, summer's day. So what's he saying? Let me see. So first I do, shall I compare thee? I'm going to pull out some words that are Shakespeare's using and write them in some modern day. So thee is like you, right? As is thou. And thou art more lovely. Art was the old way of saying are. So are more lovely. I know what lovely means, right? That's like positive connotation, right? You're pretty, you're lovely. But also using the word temperate. So temperate's a word that I would look up, right? Temperate means long lasting. So in these first two lines, it says, like, I'm comparing you to a summer's day, right? So we have like the mistress here, and then we have, I don't know how, a summer day. We'll just put a sun for summer day, right? So he's comparing these two things. So here we have that thou, right? The person, the girl, the mistress. Thou art more lovely and more temperate. So she is, right, prettier, I would say, lovely, right? Temperate means long lasting. So she's lasting longer than summer, because we know summer lasts like 3 months. So, okay, got it. Then we have rough winds do shake the darling buds of May. So we have winds, right, shake. This is like spring-ish. Summer's lease hath too short. Hath is like a has. Too short a date. So summer's lease. This is another word I might look up, or maybe I just think about like other connotations to it. So a lease, like you have a lease on an apartment or a house or a car you might lease. It means that you only have it for a short time, right? So short time. Here, sometimes too hot the eye of heaven shines. The eye of heaven. This is figurative language, and we've talked about things like this before. So he's describing here the sun, right? The eye of heaven, we look up to it. And sometimes the sun is too hot, right? Like on those 110-degree days, you don't even want to be out in the sun. Then we have, as often his gold companion dimmed. So who is his? His, I think they're still talking about the sun here. Right, the gold companion dimmed, and every fair from fair sometimes declines. I don't know what that means. I'm going to put a question mark and come back to it. By chance or nature's changing course untrimmed, right? So we have nature's changing course, and we saw that, you know, today, and we see that all the time, right? Sometimes we have rain, sometimes we have sleet, sometimes we have wind, sometimes we have snow, right? All of this, right? Nature is always changing. But notice this but. Buts are really, really important in poetry. Sometimes it's called the turn in poetry, where you go through and then it's going to change. So he's describing a bunch of stuff up here, and then it changes. But thy eternal summer, right? Thy, right? Your eternal summer shall not fade. So he's describing her, remember, as summer, but it's not like her summer. It's like her beauty is not fading. See how nature is changing all the time, but he's saying like your beauty isn't changing. So then he goes on and says, nor lose possession, right? So we might want to look up this word if we don't know possession, but like to lose, to own something. Right? Own something. Right? And oest, that means the same thing, possession. Possess. Possession. All right, nor shall death brag, thou wanderest in his shade. So we have death, right? And so we have some personification there because death is bragging that he can take you at any time, right? Like we're all going to die. If you think about death, I'll make death here. I don't know how to make the Grim Reaper, but you know, he has like one of those things that looks like a shepherd, but you know what I'm talking about, right? He's here and then we're here and death is like looking over our shoulder because eventually we're going to die. But when an eternal line to time thou growest, okay, so we are still like living here. And this is important. Shakespeare's last two lines, you won't have this in Romeo and Juliet, but Shakespeare's last two lines are called a couplet. And a couplet is going to give you kind of a summary of the poem. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. So this is the poem. So he's saying like, well, how can we eternally see your beauty here? Well, he says that we're going to see it through this poem. So long as men can breathe, their eyes can see. So as long as this poem lives, you are going to live. Whoever this person is, you are going to live through this. So here we have an idea of like art, you know, can last forever, right? We think about immortality, all of those type of ideas here. So now I'm going to take all of these ideas that I have, I'm going to try to rewrite it over on my other side, on my modern translation. So let's say I'm going to use a question mark because I'm noticing, right, that he uses a question mark here. So how do I compare you to the sunrise? That's my first one. All right, my second line, you are beautiful. And maybe I say long lasting. And I don't know, I'm going to put it down for now. I can always go back and revise it. Right, the weather, because they're doing like the rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, I'd say something like the weather clouds the sun's rays. Maybe I add a little bit like of figurative language, like blanketing its face, right? Like the clouds are like a blanket, trying to do something there. And quickly, I'm going to say in the blink of an eye, which might be an expression you've heard. It's over, right? That's how summer feels like. You're like, I blinked and now I have to go back to school. Often it's too bright. So here I'm going on to this, right? Too hot, the sun of eye of heaven shines. It's too bright. And maybe I say, I can't stand it. We could say, or it blinds me as I drive. So I'm trying to bring in some maybe modern connotations. Obviously, we didn't have cars back in Shakespeare's time, but now we do. And often, I could say, let's see, often, skull's complexion dim, right? When the sun doesn't shine in the summer, which often happens in England. Here we have pretty sunny summers, but you know, in June when it's still kind of cold, we could say often comes too late. Like summer, I want it to be hot, but it's not really hot until after the 4th of July. I'm going to say, I'm going to use the word like a slave to Earth's cycles. And maybe I want to put like Mother Earth, right? That's kind of something that we think about now. But then I want to use this but. The same thing that they did here, I think that's really important for me to add to my own writing. So I'm going to put that in and say, but your face shines constant. and daily. And then I'm going to kind of go back and see what I said earlier and kind of do like a comparison contrast, like your face never blinding, but inviting. I could say never, I don't want to say blinds, maybe needles with light, but full of, maybe I want to say something like, I don't want to say beauty again, but maybe like grace. And the 12th one. So here I'm here in this when the eternal line to time thou growest. Maybe I want to say like when the sun doesn't shine, or maybe when the sun's face, maybe I want to use more like figurative language. Face, let's say, no longer shines. This one has thou growest, so I'm going to say you remain. And then I'll do my couplet over here. So my couplet over here is going to say, so long, I'm going to use some of the same phrasing, as men create, let's say we, as we create light, even when we're gone, we'll say, there you will be. So even when you're gone, you'll still be there. So long, your beauty will last with this writing. All right, with this poem. So now I have kind of like a poem that I have here. After I would do this, I would kind of go read through it. I'd want to double check my work and just see if I'm capturing everything over here. And I'm also just going to use a quick highlighter and look for some things, right? I did try to use some figurative language here, right? A blink of an eye, Mother Earth, right? Your face shines, which face hasn't really shined, right? Needles. So I'm going to want to make sure that I'm kind of capturing this. This is what I would do for just a regular kind of interpretation. If you want to take it one step further with this modern interpretation, the next thing you could do is to make it, I would say, in some sort of genre. Like maybe you want to make it in like text speech. Maybe you want to make it like you were messaging someone, and what would that look like? So you can be creative with this and do whatever you want, but what I'm looking is that you understand the text that is over here, and feel free to give me this text marking in your interpretation, and then over here how you came about it. This is going to be for analyzing text, so I want to be able to see that you understand what Shakespeare is saying here. As always, just let me know if you have any questions.